أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you. Welcome to another live English broadcast brought to you by the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement. This is an organization which has led Islam onto the lofty goal of it is destined to attain. Today, we will be examining the contributions made by Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad to the cause of Islam. Joining us today are two eminent guests who are versed in this subject. Firstly, we have Imam Shahid Aziz, MSc in Mathematics and a graduate of the Institute of Legal Executives. Imam Shahid Aziz is an executive member of the Ahmadiyya Anjuman Ishati Islam Lahore of the UK. Welcome, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me.
Secondly, we have Imam Muhammad Ishaq Roshan, Imam of the Ahmadiyya Anjuman Ishati Islam Maison in Suriname. Imam Roshan is the president of the Council of Scholars of the SIV, the Suriname Islamic Organization of in Suriname. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. To begin the discussion, Imam Shahid Aziz, Hazrat Mirza Sahib held as his motto, "Back to the Quran." How did this shape Islamic thought during his lifetime and for the movement for which he founded thereafter?
Well, that was a fundamental reform that Hazrat Sahib made to Islamic thought. Because previously Muslims believed that the sequence in which you obey commands was ulama first, then the hadith, then the Holy Quran. They went so far as to say that if a hadith seems to contradict the Holy Quran, then what you do is you reject the Holy Quran, which is very strange because the Holy Quran is the word of Allah, divine revelation, and it was preserved at the time that it was revealed. Hadith didn't come into being until 100 years after the Holy Prophet. If you read the Hadith, it says, so-and-so told so-and-so, who told so-and-so, who told so-and-so, who said that the Holy Prophet Muhammad said this. So there's a whole chain of narrators. Now, what Hazrat Sahib pointed out was this. He said, read the Holy Quran, and what you will find is that the Holy Quran tells you in which sequence to obey. Say, chapter 3, verse 32, say, obey Allah and the Messenger. So obey Allah first. Obey Allah and obey the Messenger and those in authority from among you. Chapter 5, verse 92, obey Allah and obey the Messenger. Chapter 8, verse 1, obey Allah and His Messenger. Chapter 8, verse 20, obey Allah and His Messenger. And it goes on and on and on and on. And you see the number of verses where the Holy Quran says, and obey Allah and obey the Messenger. And yet, despite that, the Muslim sequence of belief was that you don't obey Allah first, you obey a hadith first. which is not even certain that the Holy Prophet Muhammad might have said. And so, what the Hazrat Sahib did was this. He said, number one, obey Allah. Number two, obey the Sunnah. And he differentiated between the practice of the Holy Prophet, which is Sunnah, and the sayings of the Holy Prophet, which is Hadith. And the point he made was this: Muslims in the time of the Holy Prophet prayed in the way that they did. No one can say that you needed the Hadith to pray the certain number of rakahs in Fajr, Zohar, Asr, and so on. Muslims always did it without there being a Hadith. So they were following the practice of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. They were obeying the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And then he said, third is Hadith of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And then he said, following that is science and natural laws that you follow them. So he actually reversed the sequence in which Muslims believe things. Now, you see, the strange thing is, Muslims had given Greek philosophy, which had been translated from Greek into Arabic at the time of Abbasid Khulafa, into Arabic, and that had taken the level almost of divine revelation. They said, you can't disagree with this. And why can't you disagree with that? Why can't you disagree with Euclid? Why can't you disagree with Aristotle? They were just human beings who said these things. So Hazrat Sahib said that don't go back 3,000-4,000 years ago to look at what these people said. Science has moved on. The world has moved on. And he gave many examples of this. He said that the hadith about the coming of the Messiah talks about an ass, which is 40 yards long, and so on and so forth. And he said that these are prophecies about inventions that we are seeing in our own time. So why shouldn't we look at the science behind those philosophies? Now, he made a very important point, because at that time, some Muslims were beginning to say that if science says something is impossible, then it's impossible. For example, some people, when they said that Jesus had a father, the reason they gave was that science tells us, medicine tells us, that Jesus must have a father. Now, one member of the Jamaat believed that Jesus had a father, and when he went to Qadian, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad asked him, why do you believe Jesus had a father? And the man said, well, the Quran in verse this, it says this, and in another verse, the Quran says this, and in another verse, the Quran says this, and in another verse, the Quran says this. And people said, you didn't tell this man off. So Hazrat Sahib said, how can I tell anyone off who argues his point of view from the Holy Quran on the basis of the Holy Quran? So that was another very important thing the Hazrat Mirza Sahib said, keep science below the Holy Quran. If you say something can't be done because science says it can't be done, that means you're raising science above the majesty of Godhead. God can do anything that he wants to. But in the Holy Quran, he says, I have created these rules, I have created these laws, and I will bind myself to these laws. That is a different situation altogether. I'll give you an example. There's a member of parliament in the UK, and these days with the COVID-19 and so on, the rules are that if you are tested positive for COVID-19, then you isolate yourself for 2 weeks. She was tested positive, and she got on a train, and she went to back to her hometown. And the whole country is saying, if the lawmakers don't obey the law, why should we? She is a member of the parliament that said, if you're tested positive, isolate yourself. And she doesn't. She gets on a train, puts other people at risk, and goes home. And that is the point that Allah is making, that I made the laws, and I am the first one to abide by those rules and regulations. So, but that is a separate thing. But Hazrat Sahib said, God can do whatever he wants to. So don't elevate science above God. And he made another very important contribution to this debate. And that was that there was another concept which said that if it seems to you that one verse of the Holy Quran is contradicting another verse of the Holy Quran, then you have to abrogate one of these verses of the Holy Quran. Hazrat Shah Waliullah, he writes in his book that people say 512. Can you believe this? 512 verses of the Holy Quran are abrogated. How will you preach Islam to a non-Muslim when you yourself believe that parts of the Quran are cancelled? And Hazrat Shah Waliullah says, I have done research, and I have said that only 7 verses of the Holy Quran are abrogated, and I've got rid of all the other 500 and whatever the verses which people say. But even if you say one verse of the Holy Quran is abrogated, it throws the whole teaching into doubt. Throws the whole teaching into doubt. Because if you abrogate one verse, why shouldn't I abrogate another one? And find some excuse for it. And he made a very important point, and he said that none of the verses of the Holy Quran were abrogated, are abrogated, or will be abrogated. If you want to find their meaning, don't run outside the Holy Quran. Look in the Quran itself, and you will find an explanation of that verse of the Holy Quran. He said, rather than running here, there, and everywhere, why don't you? And this was what he did. Any topic that he had to write on, he would read the Holy Quran from start to end, cover to cover, to find out what its teachings were. And you see, the brilliance of this approach, which wasn't appreciated, that there was a lecture, someone arranged an interfaith meeting in Lahore. And they set 5 questions to representatives of different religions, Christians, Hindus, Sikhs. And from Muslims, they invited non-Ahmadi Muslims and Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. You might have seen this book, The Philosophy of Teachings of Islam. And the condition was that you must restrict yourself to your holy book. You must restrict yourself. Don't say, Maulana, this says that, and Maulana says that. This is your holy book. Just use that and answer these questions. And Maulana, I think it was Abdul Karim who started to read Hazrat Sahab's reply, because Hazrat Sahab wasn't too well. And he ran out of time. And it was time for the next speaker, who was a Muslim. And he said, I give my time for this lecture to be completed. So the lecture carried on to the end of the day. And they said, we've only covered the answer to the first question. So everyone in the hall stood up and said to the organizers, extend the conference by another day. So they extended the conference by another day. And then the full reply was read out to people and so on. And then the judges unanimously voted it the best answer to those questions. Now, this is the most prominent scholars of India, of all religions who appear. So can you see the importance of this approach, that you go back to the Holy Quran first when you're seeking something? Even when you want an explanation of something, first see what the Holy Quran says. It explains itself in different places. If you don't understand one thing, read on, read somewhere else. And in the UK these days, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, at 7 o'clock UK time in Urdu and at 7:30 UK time in English, we have these reflections on the Holy Quran, where we look at each word of the Holy Quran and its possible interpretations and meanings. And in modern terminology, it blows your mind. It actually blows your mind to see. And you think, I'm 70 years old. I've been reading the Holy Quran, and I haven't understood any of this. And it's taken 115 lectures just to get to verse, I think, 67 of Al-Baqarah. And amazing new meanings have transpired because science has developed, archaeology has developed, our understanding of the universe has developed. And you look at these things and you see, how amazing the whole thing is. Do we have time for me to give an example?
Yes.
Let me give you an example. We are always saying that Adam was created as God's Khalifa. So when reading those verses and looking at the meaning of the word Khalifa, Khalifa means one person who takes over from another person when the first person has died. Can you understand what I mean? So Hazrat Abu Bakr was the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's Khalifa, because the Holy Prophet sallam had passed away, and Hazrat Abu Bakr took on all his authority and power. So if we say Adam is God's Khalifa, does it mean that God has died and Adam has now taken over all of God's authority and power? No. Adam being Khalifa means there was another creation resembling Adam that passed away, and Adam was that creation's Khalifa. Because the angels say, why do you want to make something that will make mischief? How did the angels know? Angels can't know the future. So how did angels know that Adam was going to create trouble, going to make mischief? The only way they could have known was that a similar creation was on earth, and it had created mischief, and it had perished. What's this called? It's called the theory of evolution. It's called the theory of evolution. So in the verses talking about the very beginning of the universe. But you see, what people say is, why didn't someone 100 years ago or 500 years ago understand this? The reason is that the science develops, and the Quranic message had to be given in those terms that people at 1500 years ago understood it, people 1000 years ago understood it, people 500 years ago understood it, and people now understand it. But we need to improve our understanding. And that was what Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was saying. Whenever anything happens, read the Quran. Read the Quran. Use everything, all your resources. Someone said to him, is photography halal or haram? What did he say? He said, someone breaks into your house with a sword, kills you, and robs your house. Is that halal or haram? So they said, this is haram. So Hazrat Sahib said, but if you take the sword away from him and kill him, is that halal or haram? And they said, but that's halal. You're defending your property. So Hazrat Sahib then said, what is the fault of the sword? He said, nothing is halal or haram. It is what you do with it that is halal or haram. If you use photography to promote something betterment, he gave the example of X-rays, and something that is beneficial to human health and so on, it is halal. If you use photography for something that is bad, then it is haram. But every time something new is invented, I remember these debates when television was introduced in some countries. I remember this debate when video recorders were introduced in some countries. Anything new, and the whole debate starts all over again. But if you keep that principle in mind, that nothing is halal or haram, it's its use that is halal or haram, then you don't need to waste time in all these debates. All you do is you ask yourself this question: how can I use the internet to promote and further the cause of Islam? Well, hey, we are a brother in Trinidad, I'm in the UK, a brother in Suriname, and we are sitting here and having this chat. But we could use it for anything that would make its use haram. So going back to the Holy Quran means try and understand the message of the Holy Quran in terms of the time and place that you're living in. If some great scholar 100 years ago said something and he was living in Damascus or Baghdad or somewhere, it doesn't mean to say that despite that man's greatness and his scholarship, that is going to be relevant to you, because he was a human being. He did not have access to divine knowledge to see what will happen 1200 years ago. So that was the essence. Go back to the Holy Quran whenever anything happens.
Thank you very much, Imam Shahid Aziz, for that very comprehensive answer on the doctrine of going back to the Quran and putting it as the primary source of Islamic thought.
Yeah.
Imam Ishaq Rosen, there were many aspects of Hazrat Mirza Sahib's mission, one of which was proving decisively the death of Jesus, wherein he put forward no less than 30 verses of the Holy Quran in support of this position. Why, therefore, do we find Muslims holding dear to the belief that he will return?
Now, the concept of death of Jesus is not a big point of discussion, because the Muslims from today stay away from the Holy Quran, and that's the main point. They listen, reading the Hadith, and focus to the Hadith, and forget what Allah says, because time will tell that God's word is the truth. after 200 or 300 years, they will come back to the Quran. That is the says of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. Then they go find the truth, what Allah says. And that we have to believe in the Quran is the first option. And then after, if we find the solution in the Quran, we have to go to the Hadith. When the Quran tells us in 30 verses in the Quran that Jesus passed away, that we have not go to search in the Hadith. And we have to believe in the Quran. That is the word of Allah. And for me, is that not a discussion point.
Thank you very much, Imam Roshan. Imam Aziz, can you comment on that point on the death of Jesus?
Yes, this goes back to what I was saying earlier on, that you put the Quran first. And when the Holy Quran says Hazrat Isa alayhi salam has passed away, then that is the end. That's finished. You don't have to go anywhere else. You see, if you believe that Hazrat Isa is up in heaven, it leads to many problems. One problem is that the Holy Quran tells us that as long as Jesus and his mother are alive, they have to pay zakat. Okay? Now, if Jesus is alive, then what is the currency of heavens in which he is paying zakat? And what job is he doing to earn money on which he has to pay zakat? And then who is he paying this zakat to? Are they poor people in heavens to whom he has to pay zakat? Quran says that all human beings need sustenance and food. Now, if Jesus is alive all these years without needing any food, what does that mean? That Jesus is not human. He's superhuman. And a Christian would say to you, oh, he's a part of Godhead. But the thing is what Imam Roshan said, and this happened to me. A man came and I said to him, the Holy Quran, look, here the Holy Quran says, which means Jesus is dead. Here the Holy Quran says this, which means Jesus is dead. Here the Holy Quran says something else, which means Jesus is dead. And he listened to me for half an hour. And then he looked at me and he said, from the Quran, it looks as if Jesus is dead. But until my Maulvi Sahib in the mosque says, Jesus is dead, I will not believe it. Listen to his words. From the Quran, it does look as if Jesus is dead. But until Maulvi Sahib in the mosque says that Jesus is dead, I will not believe it. And this was the thing that Hazrat Sahib was trying to counter, that you believe your Maulvi Sahib first, and then you go to Hadith, and then last of all you go to the Quran.
So then, if I may, it might be the symptomatic of this lack of going back to the Quran. We are therefore just looking at the opinion of your Maulvi or your scholar.
Yeah.
And that's the main reason why we hold fast to this belief. Well,
yes,
the majority of the Muslim world.
Yes,
and that is wherein the problem lies.
That's right. Well, sorry to interrupt, but when I was in South Africa, when we had that case about whether Ahmadis are Muslims or not, the main witness against us, he made this statement in the court: no one can prove from the Holy Quran that Jesus is alive in heavens. This was the main witness against Ahmadis. So we said to other witnesses who were there that, well, we've broken one of your legs, which was that Jesus is alive. Now all we need to do is break your other leg, and that is that Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib wasn't the Mujaddid of the 14th century and the promised Messiah. But we said, we broke about your own chief witness said, you can't prove from the Holy Quran that Jesus is alive and up in heaven. But you know, the example I gave you, God says all human beings need to eat. So what's Jesus eating in heavens? Because of whatever food there is not for this physical body. And I mean, you know, on our website, translated by Dr. Zahid Aziz, is this information that I'll quickly share with you. And you can see evidence from the Quran. And you can see verse after verse after verse of the Holy Quran being given here. Therein, the verse that I quoted, i.e., on earth, the physical world, you live, and therein you will die. So every human being has to live and die on this earth, in these physical surroundings. If Jesus has risen, then obviously he is not a human being. He is something different. And there is for you in the earth an abode and a provision. So if Jesus is alive, not on this abode, but somewhere else, without any provision, without any food, then he is not human. We Muslims are stabbing ourselves in the back over and over again by saying and doing things. You take anything. You take the Quran, you take the Hadith. Elsewhere in the Holy Quran, it says, all prophets before me have passed away. And none of the companions of the Holy Prophet stood up and say, what about Jesus? He's alive. The Holy Prophet, you know, the Quran is saying, all prophets before me. And if you read the debate that the Holy Prophet had with Christians of Najran, in that he clearly says that Hazrat Isa, Jesus, was a human being. His mother took him into the words are, don't you know that Mary conceived Jesus just like any other woman conceives a baby? How does any other woman conceive a baby? Are they all immaculate conception? And the Holy Prophet then clearly says that Jesus was like a human being. He was conceived as a human being and he died. And that website I was trying to share with you, that shows, you know, over and over again, not one place, but the whole of the Holy Quran is full of verses, as you say, 30 verses of the Holy Quran, you know, which show that Jesus has died, and a hadith, and many other scholars are saying the same thing. But the man in the street says, when I go to the mosque, unless my Maulvi Sahib says Jesus has passed away, I'm not going to believe it. And that's very interesting, isn't it? Because when the Holy Prophet wrote his message, and that contradicted the deeply held views of the Quraysh, what did Quraysh say? Well, our ancestors believed this, our forefathers believed this, and this is what we are being told. When you say to the man in the street, Jesus is dead, he says, but my father believed Jesus was alive, my grandfather believed Jesus was alive, My great-grandfather believed Jesus was alive, and you're telling me he's dead? It's exactly the same reply.
Thank you, Imam, for weighing in on that subject in relation to Jesus, peace be unto him. My next question is, how was Hazrat Mirza Sahib able to unite the East and West under the banner of Islam? Imam Roshan, I would give you first preference with that answer. Would you please comment on that?
Now, the mission of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad was, and that was the main point, दीन के पैगाम को दुनिया के किनारों तक पहुंचाना है. The message of our religion was to bring the world of Allah till the end of the world. So he asked his followers to bring the offers and spread the message of Islam to all the world, and translate his books in all language. And that was the dream of our Mujaddid. And the headquarters of Ahmadiyya Anjuman Islam Lahore start with this mission with the leader of Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ali Sahib Rahmatullah Alayh, to do this noble work for Allah, with the other members. One of the most noble members was Hazrat Khwaja Kamaluddin. They established the walking mosque. He started there. And then after that was Hazrat Maulana Sadruddin. He started with his mission in Berlin mosque. And so they all these members, they start with the holy work, the noble work to spread Islam. And if you see the others in the Western hemisphere, Trinidad, Suriname, Guyana, Canada, America, USA, to the West, if you go to the West, India, Indonesia, Fiji Islands, Philippines, Austria, in the South, you hear it from our Imam Shahid Aziz, South Africa. And now we united together with the internet connection. That is a God-given. That we are together in one moment. This was never been before. That we spread, we talk about our religion together and spread the Islam and bring it to the world. And this is, and now with the live streaming all over the world, we reach the young generation and the youth. That is our mission. The most important thing is that we have to reach the youth, and when we reach the youth, we are successful in the mission of Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. And that is the most important thing in our Jamaat, who bring the message from the and translate all the books and bring it in the language what they understand. You know, can't read only Arabic and you understand nothing. When you understand, that they go reach your heart, and that is the main important thing from our mission from Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. And inshallah, we go reach the goal. Maybe it takes time. That is the work we have to do, and we have joined each other. And inshallah, we come there to bring the truth of the Islam to the people of the world.
Thank you, Imam, for your take on that question. Imam Shahid Aziz, can you briefly comment on that question as to the methods in which Hazrat Saab would have united the world under the banner of Islam?
You see, it goes back to the motto, back to the Quran. But let me start with an anecdote. A young man qualified as a medical doctor, and he went to Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib and said, "Sir, I passed my exams, I have my degree, and I'm about to start practice as a medical doctor, and I seek advice from you." And Hazrat Sahib said, when a patient comes to you, then you should only see a man in pain or distress and think that God has put the gift of healing that man in your hands. Never think about that man's religion or his sect or his nationality or his color. The only thing you should think about is that I have this gift of healing and I can relieve another human being's distress and pain. And that is the point about Islam, which Muslims had missed, which you get by going back to the Holy Quran. I'll give you an example. People say zakat can only be given to Muslims. Okay? Now, where the Holy Quran mentions zakat and who's entitled to it, it doesn't mention the word Muslim. It just says needy. How hard was it for God to reveal one more word, needy Muslim, rather than just needy? And some people say, no, it actually means Muslims and so on. But then one of the categories is those in search of the truth. Now, we believe Islam is the truth. So those who are searching for the truth are non-Muslims. So the Quran itself is saying, help non-Muslims. But, we have restricted this. And this has happened. I was in hospital and under treatment of a Hindu doctor. And he told me that there was some calamity in a country where Muslims are in a majority. And he took 2 weeks leave without pay to go and help. And he said he was put with a team, and people didn't realize that he was a Hindu and from another country and so on. And he said, wherever they went, the leader of this group would ask people, recite the kalima. And if someone couldn't recite the kalima, he would refuse to give them medicine. Is this how you're going to spread Islam? Is this the image of Islam you want to present to the world, that you are so intolerant? You're so intolerant. What does the Holy Quran say to the Holy Prophet Muhammad? It says, you have delivered the message. That was your duty. Finished. I have not appointed you as a security guard to check on people whether they believe or not. Your job is to deliver the message. That's it. After that, it is between the individual and Allah. where did Allah appoint us as judges to judge on people? And this is what comes across over and over again, that we want to not even force, blackmail people into embracing Islam, into becoming Muslims before we would help them. Let me give you an example. Abu Sufyan, we all know about Abu Sufyan, and that when Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam started his mission in Makkah, how horrible this person was to the Holy Prophet, how he persecuted Muslims, how he abused the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he got others to torture him and etc. etc. Now, 1 year after the Holy Prophet migrated from Makkah to Medina, for a whole year, at one point, there was no rain in Makkah. Everyone started to die. You know, animals, and there was no vegetation, and so on and so forth, and people were desperate. So where did Abu Sufyan go to get help? He went to Medina to the Holy Prophet Muhammad. And he said, "Oh Muhammad, you tell us that your God listens to your prayers. Today we are having this problem. Pray to your God for us." Now the next thing is, what did the Holy Prophet do? You know, you and me would have taunted him. So today now you remember Muhammad now that you're in trouble. What were you doing to me when I was in Makkah? How were you treating me? You were calling me names and you were throwing stones at me and so on. What did the Holy Prophet do? He said to all the Muslims, raise your hands and pray to God to alleviate the distress of people of Makkah. And these people worshipped idols. They were not Muslims. They worshipped idols. This shows the message of real Islam. That when it comes to helping someone, when it comes to relieving their distress and their pain, you don't care what religion they are. You don't care what sect they are. You don't care what color they are. You don't care what nationality they are. This is what Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad said to this young doctor, Dr. Mirza Yaqub Beg. Only think that a human being who's suffering is sitting in front of you, and you can relieve his pain and his distress. This is how humanity will unite, by treating each other as human beings, being kind to each other, being nice to each other. And if we see someone in the street, we stretch out our hand to take his hand and lift him up. We don't care whether he's wearing a cross around his neck or what he's wearing around his neck. It's a human being who needs our help. That should be our only consideration. This is how this is the only way humanity can unite.
Thank you very much, Imam Shahid Aziz, for giving us that example of the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, which was meant to unite persons of other faiths and bring them united in humanity. And it is our hope in this movement that we can follow that example, and the one set by our founder, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, who would have done so much work in his reforms. And among them, he would have amplified the reforms that made Islam the rational and sublime religion that it is, that it can be accepted in this age of reason and knowledge and understanding. Thank you very much to our guests Imam Shahid Aziz of the United Kingdom, and
Pleasure.
Imam Mohammed Ishaq of Suriname. Thank you also to our viewers for
Thank you.
your listening, lending your ears, and for your comments. Please remember to like the video and to subscribe to the channel to be able to be notified on more Islamic discussions and enlightening presentations in the future.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be unto you.
Wa alaikum
Wa alaikum
salam.
assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you.